Hey everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers presented by Bet365. My name is Bill Matz. I am your director of fun and games for the evening. Joining me live in the Xfinity Mobile studio, it is Phillies #1 hockey beat writer, Charlie O'Connor. What's going on today, Chuck?
How's it going, William? Doing well?
I'm doing great. Mighty Lafayette standing right there toe-to-toe with Charlie's favorite to win the gold, USA. Meanwhile, Jordan Binnington posts a shutout this morning against the Czechs. So,
I think that is the best thing that could have happened to the rest of the people in the tournament, the rest of the teams, is Binnington having a good first game. Best thing that could happen.
I had the exact same thought, Charlie, because now it's like, oh, well, why change things up? Why go to Logan Thompson, number 3 on Bet365 in Vezina Trophy odds when we could have the guy who has stunk in the NHL for the last couple of years? So, but yeah, it was, I want to talk a little Olympics in a second, Charlie, but I would be remiss if I did not bring up the thing I saw on Twitter, like, I don't know, half an hour ago before we went live, and it is the Nick Castellanos handwritten note.
Oh, yeah, right.
And the revelation that after he was pulled in the Miami incident, he brought a beer into the dugout, and that was I guess the last straw. We need to normalize this. We need to normalize rally beers. I would love to see a goalie get pulled from a game and then just sit there with a Molson. Like, that would be so freaking funny. Let's absolutely normalize this. Nick Castellanos, gone but not forgotten here in Philadelphia.
So you basically, Bill, you want to turn the NHL into actual beer league.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We had a playoff game once, and I brought a flask onto the bench because there was only 4 teams in the league, and that's the only reason we made the playoffs. So I was like, I don't know, someone's giving me a ride home. I'm drinking tequila during the game. We need to normalize that. I think
that is one thing. One thing I love about hockey, and maybe there are these leagues in other sports, but I feel like, isn't hockey the only sport where there are pickup leagues that are literally centered around drinking beer? Like, or is there beer league baseball? Is there beer league basketball? Like, I don't think so. At least I'm not familiar with it.
I have seen like some softball leagues that there's like a keg at first and third.
Softball maybe,
like,
yeah.
I've definitely seen that. But like baseball, like, you're just hanging out anyway. You might as well have a beer. You're not moving for half an hour at a time.
That's fair.
Anyway, that's that. Let us get to some hockey. I guess the big story from where you and I stand covering the Philadelphia Flyers coming out of the Canada game was that Travis Sanheim was the odd man out on the Canadian blue line today in their 5-0 win over the Czechs. The pairs were Taves, Makar, Morrissey, Parayko, Harley, Doughty, and Shea Theodore was the extra. In a double IHF, you can dress 22 guys instead of 20 like the NHL. Right. So there's an extra forward and extra defenseman usually, and it was Shea Theodore who was the extra today. Sanheim was the scratch. And we kind of saw this. He was going to be a rotation guy probably. We saw it at Four Nations. He didn't play the first game, but then played almost 20 minutes in the gold medal game. Like, it's not to say he can't get in, but he is probably the 5, 6, 7, 8th guy when it comes down to it.
Yeah, and I can't imagine he won't get into some games.
Oh, he'll play some, yeah.
Yeah, that was the case in Four Nations. Four Nations, he started out as a scratch and then eventually worked himself into the rotation, was functionally a third pair defensive for them in the I hate calling it the medal round, but you know what I mean. It wasn't really medals. It was, I guess, you won the tournament or not.
A plate, I guess.
Functionally, it was a medal round. He was regularly in the rotation when the games got serious. The hope is he'll do the same this time, but I can't imagine he'll go the entire Olympics without getting in a game. He'll get his chance, and hopefully when he gets a chance, he plays well and earns himself more ice time. The Josh Morrissey, has it been clarified whether that was an injury or an illness? Because I saw somebody mention that it was an illness, but then it seemed like the coaches after the game were implying that actually it was an injury, that like he just couldn't go. So if this lingers, I mean, that gives Sanheim a very clear opportunity to get in because he didn't finish the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So even there, I haven't seen any clarification on that. but I'm sure we'll find out before their next game, Chuck. This is just a rant I've gone on a few times, and I guess it stands here. And listen, the double IHF rules I think make more sense. You still scratch somebody, but you get an extra 2 guys. I will never understand game day roster limits. You have, especially in like a salary capped sport, in which like you're gonna be compliant, otherwise why can't I use everyone I'm paying? Why do I have to pay some guys not to work? And then if there's an injury, I'm shorthanded in this very fast contact sport in which if a shift goes longer than 30 seconds, you're probably dead tired. Like, why can't I use my entire roster? I do not freaking stand it. It drives me insane. I think it's dumb, but a different rant for a different day.
Bill,
like I said,
we've
USA
talked
and
about
Latvia tied at 1 right now.
Yeah, but we've talked about it on the show that I love the idea of increasing, game day rosters. It would allow you to have, specialists, guys who, like, for example, and obviously Trevor Zegras is a great player this year regardless, but it would allow you to keep a guy on the roster who's just a shootout player. He's your hired gun. Your extra forward is a shootout guy, or like truly an offense specialist where he's only out there on the power play. I mean, God, if you did that, Alex Ovechkin could play until he's 50, just bomb slap shots until he's 50 years old. Like, to me, that would be fun. I would be totally cool with that. I would love that change.
I know they just signed a new CBA, but man, I got to believe the PA would absolutely love a few more jobs for guys, especially veterans. Like, you talk about specialists, and yeah, shootout specialist would be cool, but I think about Nick Deslauriers. I don't need Nick Deslauriers getting a regular shift, but if stuff pops off, I want him beating someone up.
That's a really fair point. Yeah,
You're paying him anyway.
If you did that, maybe you keep the fighter in the game and you make everybody happy. Make the old school fans happy. You make the new school fans happy.
And then everyone's excited. Yeah. All right. That's basically what came out of my Olympic watching experience. Like I said, it's 1-1 Latvia, mighty Latvia and the United States.
Mighty Latvia.
And USA, of course, had 2 goals overturned, one for offside, one for goalie interference. But I've just come to, like, if you're in the paint and there's any contact, it ain't going to be a goal. Doesn't matter if it's an incidental. Doesn't matter if it's a brush that doesn't actually even interfere. It's basically the foot in the paint rule from, that ended with the 1999 Stanley Cup. We're basically back to that if there's contact. So.
And it's worth noting that the IIHF rules are different than the NHL rules in terms of goalie. And the NHL rules are already stringent enough on their own. I get the sense the IIHF rules are even more stringent. So we have to kind of recalibrate where, even compare it to Four Nations. Like, I believe Four Nations was played under NHL rules.
Yeah, it was all NHL.
It was an NHL tournament. International hockey has slightly different rules. So there will be goals that maybe would have been allowed in the NHL, but won't be allowed in this tournament. We all just have to remember that this is run by a different administrative organizational body.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, we have plenty of time to get to the next topic. The crux of today's show, Charlie, the idea for it came when I saw these Chris Johnston. He's a quote he said on his show about the Philadelphia Flyers potentially trading Owen Tippett. And it led me to think, we're doing bigger picture stuff this week. And the thing about having a ton of wingers is real. Like, at some point, Danny Briere is going to have to trade some of these guys because there's so freaking many. And we'll get into, like, the list is 10, 11, 12 dudes deep right now, not even taking into account any recent draft picks other than Porter Martone. And in the top 9, we're talking about 6 spots. So it's going to have to come to fruition at some point. And Owen Tippett has been rumored. We go back to December when Danny Briere kind of had to pull him aside and be like, we're not shopping you. Yes, other teams are calling about you. You should take it as a compliment because they want you. But we're not trying to trade you. But the calls continue to come, I suppose. And so on his show yesterday, I believe, Chris Johnston said, I don't know yet which way Philadelphia is going to go, and I don't think they know which way they're going to go at this deadline. I'm not suggesting that they're going to be a big buyer, but to what degree are they going to sell? What do they consider? I'd be surprised if we're talking about Tippett being moved at the deadline, but I also can't rule it out entirely because, clearly part of the reaction to everything that that's gone on is that the expectations have gone up, and they have to find a way to take steps forward as an organization. And sometimes to do that, you have to consider moving out players who have been pretty productive for you too.
William, this has got to
Please,
be
this
has got to be your favorite type of report, because it just follows your overarching life philosophy of everything in life is 50-50. Either it happens or it doesn't. That was that report. Hey, it could happen or it could not happen. 50-50.
Now, this is going to springboard into running down each winger. We're going to talk about them and the possibility of trading them and everything. But Charlie, you are I respect you very much as a journalist. I had to go and get myself a journalism degree to realize I don't want that freaking job. And you have taken it and have become very good at it. When you read a quote-unquote report like this, what goes through your head?
Yeah, this one annoyed me when I read it, because it's basically a lot of nothing. I don't personally know Chris Johnston. If I've met him before, I've probably only met him in passing. But this is the kind of stuff that annoys me about some of the insiders, where it's pretty clear he doesn't know anything concrete, so he's just talking, being like, well, maybe. And I guess he's not wrong. Like, there is a world where Owen Tippett could get traded at this deadline if the Flyers run into a hockey trade that works for both sides, them and another team. I don't think Owen Tippett is untradeable. All of that is true. But if you are an insider, you really should keep away from doing things like this, where you just sort of like say words into the void and then create a narrative when, if you actually read what he was reporting, it's actually nothing. Like, I just wish the insiders would be more careful, because all this is saying, like, hey, he might get traded or he might not get traded, which he could say for like every other guy on the team. It just it just strikes me as kind of irresponsible to say this on your show, because you know that fans are starved for trade rumors. They love nothing more, especially people online, love nothing more than trade rumors. And this was going to get transcribed. This was going to get out there, and it was going to at least drive the conversation for a day or two. And I just don't think it should have. If you're going to say somebody's name, have something more concrete than, well, he might get traded or he might not. Like, that to me isn't a report. That's just talking.
And like the idea of what we're going to do after the break, like we are going to talk about the circumstances under which any of these wingers could be traded, because they're going to have to do it eventually, as soon as this deadline or this summer. It has to happen because there just aren't enough roster spots. But like, this is it's been called like a rumor, and there's no other team attached. There's no asking price attached. It's just simply the idea that, they could. Like, and that I found that, I was just like reading it and going, what's the rumor that like a trade may or may not be? Yeah, man, that's every day in the NHL. A trade could or could not happen.
And part of this is on the ecosystem in general.
Oh, sure.
Like people are starved for content, and then they repurpose content to generate their own likes and clicks and whatever. I just wish that if you are an insider, I wish you would be a little bit less cavalier with what you just say, unless you really know there's something behind it, because then the rest of us are the ones that have to then analyze these rumors as if they might happen, when in reality, like, might Owen Tippett get traded? Yes, but I don't think this is anything new. It's just that, he's available for trade if there's a hockey trade that comes around that allows the Flyers to solve their center problem or their defense problem, because they have a ton of wingers and they can't keep them all. Like, that's just logic. That's not just a new rumor.
That's just opening up the depth chart and going,
yeah,
well, he's pretty good. They could get something for him.
And he is. Owen Tippett's a darn good player.
I can't believe I'm saying it, Charlie, but with his no trade, he's got a 10-team no trade kicking in July 1st. It's for, I think, 4 of the years of the deal. It is worth at least considering, but at this point, it has to be a move that lands me an impact center or defenseman. I'm not giving up Tippett plus probably some other stuff for anything that isn't a top-line player. And I can't believe how far we've come since exit interviews.
I know. Yeah, you were the anti-Tippett leader. after that exit interview.
Listen, he did what he had to do. Like, he's getting to the net. He's playing physical. Even when he's not putting the puck in the net, he's noticeable. He's come a long way. So it is, however, worth considering. And we're going to do just that on the other side. We're going to take a look at all of these Flyers wingers and talk about just how likely we think it is and how necessary it is to move some of them. But we got to take our first break. Let me tell you how my morning starts each and every day. It starts at my Wawa. Now, this is an ad read, but everybody watching by now has to know how much I love Wawa, and Wawa has given us yet another reason to love them. It's the $5 Big Breakfast Deal. For just $5, you can get any sizzly breakfast sandwich, any size hot or iced coffee, and a hash brown every morning from 5 a.m. to 11 a.m. That's right, a breakfast sizzly, a coffee, and a hash brown for just $5 from your local Wawa. That's value, that's convenience, and that's deliciousness all together in one deal. And while you're picking up your coffee, check out the brand new Caramel Chocolate Craze coffee flavors. You can try caramel, try chocolate, or mix them together for a sweet treat that will start your morning off right. The $5 Big Breakfast Deals for a limited time and exclusions apply. See Wawa.com for details. No need to overthink breakfast. Just grab and go and get on with your day. You gotta have a Wawa, and let's go Flyers. Let's talk about Togo. Do we really want Matvei Michkov playing goalie? No, it's not worth the risk, time, or money. It doesn't make any sense. You want to keep your stars focused on what they do best, and the same applies to your business. For small and mid-sized businesses, competing with bigger companies isn't about working harder, it's about working smarter. With competition heating up, you can't afford to fall behind. AI goes way beyond ChatGPT, and it gets overwhelming fast. That's why having a trusted guide like Togo matters. Togo streamlines your operations by handling customer service, accounting, order management, logistics, admin, data entry, and even complex multi-step processes without the cost of building it all in-house. Every engagement starts with free process mapping, and Togo doesn't bill a dime until the real work begins. Programs start as low as $1,000 a month and are built for scale without breaking the bank. Visit harnesstogo.com and mention PHLY for a free operational assessment. All right, let's talk about all these wings, Charlie. As we have a graphic just showing like all of the wingers who are here or close to being here at this point. And a couple of notes. I have Zegras as a wing. Listen, he's getting the shot at center. He excelled in the first half as a winger, though. He's 6'1", 185. The list of dudes who are like impact centers in this league at that size is pretty short. Maybe he's just built better for the wing. And I think we kind of have to move forward thinking that at this point. That could change. And also, I have Noah Cates listed here. Certainly, he is being used as a center, and he's one of the Flyers' better ones. That said, if they are to acquire another center, especially one who isn't like, oh yeah, that's a 1C, that could kick him out to wing if it's another middle six guy like a Dvorak type who might be a little bit more offensively gifted, might be better in the face-off circle, what have you. So that could potentially move Cates over there. But even without those two, there's like 10, 12 names on this list, Charlie. And I have broken them up for the purposes of this conversation into 3 tiers. There is surprise to see traded, there is potential core or trade pieces, and then there's others. And I don't know how deep we're going to get into the others, but I want to start with the top of the line guys, the wingers who I would be surprised to see traded. The first one is Travis Konecny. Long-term contract, best player on the team, leading scorer last few years.
No movement
No
clause.
trade, no move. It would be difficult and complicated and unlikely to see TK moved.
Yeah, we talked about this, I think, last week.
Yeah.
When justifiably he expressed after the game that he's sick of not playing in the playoffs. And then people kind of took that as, maybe he wants to play for a team that will actually make the playoffs. And that's fair. Yeah. And as I said when we talked about it last week, like if Travis Konecny were to go into Danny Briere's office over the next couple weeks and say, Danny, love Philly, love playing with my bud Travis, but I need to play in the playoffs. I'm sick of this. I don't know how much longer this rebuild is going to take, but I'm done. I would totally get it, and I would not begrudge him that. Like, I understand why fans are mad that they still haven't made the playoffs. I understand why players who have been here since the middle of the 2010s would be mad that this playoff drought appears to be continuing. It's just that if he doesn't do that, I don't see a world where they move him. I don't see a world where the Flyers push Konecny to waive.
Yeah.
I think he only gets moved if Konecny just gets fed up with the whole thing. And again, if he does, wouldn't blame the guy. I just don't necessarily like. I'll say it right now. Like, I haven't heard anything to tell me that he's fed up. I don't get that sense. That doesn't mean that he isn't. That doesn't mean that he's not like pushing for this behind closed doors. And if that's the case, then I'll be surprised and I'll eat that one. But like, I just haven't heard anything that it's like, man, TK wants out.
Yeah, and maybe this applies to Trevor Zegras as well, but like, he hasn't been here as long. He doesn't have a long-term deal as of yet. But these the wingers in this level are TK, Michkov, Zegras, and Martone. And one thing I'll say is that we often make comparisons to Flyers trades of the past as a way to frame how they can go about getting that high-end talent that we know they so badly need in the future. And I've used the Lupul comparison in this winger conversation as well. That's how they got Pronger. It's, some draft picks, it's Lupul, and it's prospect Lucas Spiza. Like, Lupul's kind of the centerpiece at that point, along with like the firsts and stuff.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. Like, the Flyers have some guys that kind of compare. 20-ish goal scorer. He's on a team with a ton of 20-goal scorers. He's like 24, 25 years old. They got some good years out of him, and then they move him from a position of strength in a package for an all-time great D-man. It's a very easy comparison to make. But I want to look at these two guys, TK and Zegras, as well, in another comparable that maybe we haven't talked about as much as potential. And it's a comparable to Mark Recchi. The Recchi for Desjardins and Leclerc trade. Recchi scored 53 goals and the franchise record 123 points in his first full season in Philly, led the team in scoring by 37 points, put up another 100-plus points the following year. But then in 94-95, out of the lockout, they're 3-6-1. Team needs a change. JJ talked about this in our interview with him and Bush. And Lindros is in his third season. Time to get going. They move Recchi, the guy who'd led the team in scoring the previous couple of years, and they get some outstanding help on the back end. And then, John Leclerc worked out real well too. Maybe the trade they need to be thinking about is a Konecny in a give big to get big situation. That is the one thing that I think makes it make sense. Of course, no move, no trade. Complicates it. Don't think Mark Recchi had one of those back in the 90s. But if they are to acquire a star-level player or two guys who have the potential to be star-level players, like was the case in this one, it really might take a TK.
Yeah, and I guess where I come from is that I'm not saying it's impossible, but I just don't see a world where that happens when he has the no move. Like, if you want to talk about a trade like that, I think that's far more likely. And again, I don't expect to see this guy trade it, but I think that's far more likely to come via Trevor Zegras. Like that would make more sense to me, because with Zegras, you don't have to deal with no trade protection. You don't have to, you don't have to be restricted by the fact that like you could come up with the best trade in the world and then Konecny's like, yeah, I don't want to go to Seattle, or I don't want to go to Minnesota or whatever. And then the trade never happens. Whereas if you were to come up with a blockbuster deal like that with Zegras, I don't think the Flyers want to get rid of Zegras. But if you could get a blockbuster deal like that, you don't have to run it by him. You could just do it. And even if they sign him to a big deal this summer, the no trade won't kick in until he's 26, I believe. So like,
I think it's 26. Yeah.
So it would depend on basically when he would have become a UFA.
Yeah.
So I don't believe it would kick in until he's 26. So they would still theoretically have another year to make a blockbuster deal without having to run it by him. I just feel like I see where you're coming from, Bill, and I get it. Like, you got to give to get, but I think you're underrating the difficulty that a guy having a no movement clause adds to making a deal like that.
Oh, I fully understand. It's just, this is the scenario under which it would even make sense at this point. Like, yeah, you and I were kind of like, does it make sense to resign him? Blah, blah, blah. We had that whole conversation 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But now, like, it's done. That part of the conversation is over. It doesn't matter what your opinion was. We're well beyond that. Now, this is the thing. If he does want out, because like I've said time and time again, hasn't been in actual playoff atmosphere since a month after he turned 21 in the 2018-19 playoffs. Like, series with fans in the stands, you know, and it was short-lived. It was 6 and out against the Pittsburgh Penguins, you know. He hasn't had it since then. Maybe that could loosen the grip a little bit of those clauses, but we have seen how difficult those clauses make it. Look at the Artemi Panarin trade.
Yeah.
They gave big and got nothing back. You know, I mean, like, you know, Green Tree, okay, but like,
I better hope Liam Green Tree is going to be a stud.
Yeah.
Better hope.
The other two guys in this tier, because that I think applies to TK and Zegras, it's Michkov and Martone. The circumstances under which I would trade them, like Michkov at this point, with his value being what it probably is, don't exist. And really, for both of them, the trades that I would include them in don't happen. Like, yeah, man, if we could get Cale Makar, sure, give them both. But we're not going to, so no.
The one thing I'll say in terms of disagreeing with you is that I disagree that Michkov's value has tanked. I think he is still an extremely valuable asset that if the Flyers wanted to, if the Flyers decided they were giving up on Matvei Michkov, they could make him the centerpiece of a deal that brings back a really good player or multiple really good players. So I don't want you to get like caught up in all of the drama of the last couple months. He is still highly valued around the league. There are plenty of teams in the league who look at him and they're like, yeah, if he's a distressed asset, we'll swoop in a second. It's just, I don't think the Flyers want to trade him, at least at this point. So therefore, the whole conversation is basically moot because, like, if they weren't willing to move him for Quinn Hughes, I'm not sure who else is out there that they would be willing to move him for.
Yeah, and that's like your idea that, like, well, if he's a distressed asset, let's get in there and get him. That isn't exactly centerpiece of blockbuster trade that helps Philadelphia. Like, it could. They could get lucky with whatever they get in return. But to me, that's like, I don't think his value has tanked. Like, no, that's silly. He's 21 years old. But it's definitely lower than it was on the last day of the season, last season.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah, that's fair. And now it's primarily now because of the, the conditioning concerns and whatnot that exist because of this whole thing that has arisen, in no small part because of what Michkov didn't do, but also because of what the Flyers have said publicly and how big this has blown up. And that's frustrating. But I think the key with Michkov is the Flyers don't want to move it. If they were legitimately souring on this kid, they would have moved it for Quinn Hughes because, like, how many players are going to be available in the next couple of years that are better than Quinn Hughes? Maybe one.
Yeah. And in terms of Martone, again, if there's a superstar available, and like the thing with Hughes, I would have moved either of those guys in a trade to get Hughes with the guarantee he signs an extension on July 1st.
Fair.
If he's unwilling to guarantee that, I can't do it because of where the Flyers are. I think it makes sense for Minnesota because that's 2 playoff runs guaranteed with him, and they think they're close.
Yeah.
The Flyers, in these 2 years, as awesome as Quinn Hughes is, Vancouver stunk with him, so I don't know. And Martone, I'm just unwilling to trade at this point because then I know he'd go on to be a superstar. Like, it would be a guarantee he wins a Conn Smythe in his career if he were to be traded before he ever suits up for us. So I'm unwilling to do it for those reasons.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if Martone gets traded. Again, it would have to be for an elite level established NHL player in his prime for them to, I think, consider trading Martone at this point. So I just don't see it happening.
So there's 4 guys in that tier the would be surprised to see traded, and like that might be an understatement. Trevor Zegras, the revelation, might be the most likely, and I don't think any of these are likely. Again, this is the surprise level. But it does feel like that would be the easiest one to do.
Yeah, I mean, and you could sell it. Like, another reason why I don't think they're going to trade Michkov, at least not now. Maybe if he has another bad summer and comes in out of shape again, and then it's like, oh God, we need to cut bait with this guy. That's a different story. But
4th of July, we see him eating hot dogs in the contest.
He's Joey Chestnut. But anyway, one of the reasons why I don't think they're going to trade Michkov is I think they are like, Jonesy and Hilferty are very attuned to the fan base. And I think they know that it would be there would be people marching on the Flyers training center if they trade a Michkov for like anything that isn't Connor McDavid at this
Yeah,
point.
that's again, the dudes that I would accept him being moved for ain't getting traded. Like that's basically what it comes down to. All right, the next tier we will hit on the other side are the potential core or trade pieces. All the dudes who would not shock me if they were traded at some point. But first, let's take another break. All right, it's time to talk about Elkin Chevrolet, because Elkin Chevrolet is run by three brothers. They're real brothers, local guys, and they are big Flyers fans. So if nothing else, you know that they're loyal. And right now they're putting on a President's Day sales event, and the deals are bigger and better than ever. If you need a truck, they've got you. If you're looking for an SUV, they have that too. Every vehicle comes with the kind of service that makes you feel like part of the Elkins family. But do not wait. These President's Day deals are only here for a short time. So swing by Elkin Chevrolet on Route 73 South in Marlton, New Jersey, and get in on the deals that are just plain honkin' good. Elkin Chevrolet, real brothers, real deals, and a whole lot of that honkin' good service. Elkin Chevy, together let's drive, and together let's go Flyers. Everybody's got their favorite hard tea. It is the cool thing right now. But have you ever turned the can around to read what's inside? Well, most of the time you can't, because the others won't tell you what their tea is made of. And while others hide what's inside, Crooked Tea brags about what they've got, because Crooked Tea brews real USDA organic tea for real flavor with zero sugar. There's no fake junk hiding behind the label. What you see is what you drink. So next time you're at the store, flip that can. And if you can't find the ingredients, just put it back on the shelf, and then grab a Crooked Tea, zero sugar, real tea, and fully transparent. Philly recognizes real. Don't drink that fake stuff. I just served a bunch of these at a holiday party I had. They were a huge hit. People love them. They come in a bunch of flavors. I'm partial to the raspberry. Check out what suits you best and crack one open. You know what you're getting, because it's all on the can. Why drink the fake stuff? Crooked Tea. The only thing better is a strip sack in the Super Bowl. Visit crookedtea.com to find a store near you. Go Birds, and let's go Flyers.
Yeah, so jumping back in, two things I want to talk about real quick. First, hit that like button. We have not that many likes today. I believe we're at 40. I want to get that up to 100. So hit that like button. I know we're not in studio, but we still need those likes. Thank you very much. Second, and I want to clarify, because I kind of lost my train of thought midway through that answer. The point I wanted to make was that I think there's a consideration with Michkov where it's like, hey, we know how much the fans love this kid. Right now, it's just not going to work if we move this guy for anything that isn't an insane return. With Zegras, look, the fans love Zegras. I'm enjoying watching Trevor Zegras. He's fit into that room very well. But I think it would be significantly easier to sell a Zegras trade, as in like, hey, we bought low on a distressed asset, we rehabilitated his value, and then we turned him into this great return. I think that would be much easier for fans to swallow, as opposed to trading the guy who was the jewel of the rebuild, who they were carrying his luggage through the airport.
Yeah, 100%. Like, we haven't had the amount of time to form this attachment, like the original Mad Russian merch we put out was well before he got here. It was like coming soon or something,
Yeah.
It was from the day they drafted him. Hell, I was in Sea Isle at the Jason Kelce event the day of that draft. And someone who I didn't even know came running up to me like, they did it. They took him. They actually took Michkov. Like, we've formed that attachment. We haven't quite got there yet with Zegras. He is, however, making a great case for himself. But as we're talking about, some winger is going to need to get traded, and that moves us to my second tier of guys, the potential core or trade pieces, who none of these would really surprise me. In this tier, Owen Tippett, Tyson Foerster, Bobby Brink, Denver Barkey, Alex Bump, and I am including Noah Cates in here because, again, if they were to acquire like another guy who's more of a 2 or 3C than a 1C, that could potentially kick Cates back out to wing, and I think that makes him a little more expendable. So he fits into this tier for me, even though technically he's not a winger right now. But I'm going to start with Owen Tippett, the guy who kind of got this conversation started. The 10-team no trade kicks in July. He will turn, I think in 4 days, he turns 27 years old. He is playing the most consistent hockey of his career. But does that mean, Charlie, it's time to cash in? I have really enjoyed seeing him become a more physical player, a guy who goes to the net, a guy who has worked on his playmaking. They have him killing penalties a little now. I have liked watching him develop, and man, go back 9 months, and I can't believe that that's the case, but here we are. That said, his value is never going to be higher.
Yeah, and I'm where I've been at with Tippett for a while, which is I'm not opposed to the idea of moving Owen Tippett. I don't think he should be viewed as untouchable, and it's pretty clear he's not viewed as untouchable in the organization. They like him a lot. He's not untouchable. It's just that if you're going to move him, you've got to move him for a piece at a premium position.
Yes.
You've got to move him for a center and not just I guess he's an okay 2C, an actual top 6 center who can be a 1C if you give him really good wingers. Or you move him for a legitimate top pair defenseman, a guy who you can pair with Travis Sanheim, and you have a true lockdown top pair, so you can move Cam York down to second pair duties and have everybody slot in a little bit more reasonably. Like in those situations, if you're trading for guys who are, and I don't think, I guess I would trade him for a Chris Pronger level defenseman, even if they're older, but I'd most likely be looking for guys who are, more in their primes, in that 25 to 29 age range where I can trust that if they're really good now, they're going to stay really good for quite a while. Maybe if there's a Hall of Fame level player, I would consider trading Owen Tippett for him, even if he's 36, 37, but not expecting any of those guys to be available either. Like if Tampa, and I don't know why they would do it, but Tampa was yeah, we'll trade Victor Hedman. It's I would probably trade Owen Tippett for Victor Hedman in a package for Victor Hedman. But I don't see why Tampa would trade Victor Hedman. So it's a non-entity. My point is that I'm only trading Owen Tippett for a piece, an in-prime piece at a premium position. I'm not trading it for another winger just to shake things up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to your point, going back to the Pronger trade comparison, I think Tippett slots in that Joffrey Lupul role pretty well there. That's a pretty good comparison to make. That said, that team in terms of acquiring, I think Pronger was 34 at the time, 35. That team had been to an Eastern Conference final 2 seasons prior. They got eliminated in the first round, but it was by eventual champion Pittsburgh Penguins. They needed something after losing 2 years in a row to Crosby to close that gap. And then, of course, they don't even run into him that next year, and boom, they're in the Stanley Cup final. But, that team was close. They needed that to put them over the top, so it didn't matter that, the back end of this is going to be ugly. And, of course, it got ugly fast because he has the wrist injury the following season, and then he has the eye injury and never plays again. But it should be more of a younger guy, to your point, than we targeted then, because the teams are just in different positions. They are not a one guy away from the Stanley Cup unless that guy's name is Nathan McKinnon. Agreed. That's basically where we are. So I think those are the conditions of Tippett. That's what would make sense. I really, really like Tyson Foerster, and I know I am not alone in this conversation or in this fan base in saying that. But when looking at these wingers, Charlie, one, we know he's good. We know he can put the puck in the net. I think he's got 19 goals in his last 30 games or something like that, going back to the end of last season and then the start of this season.
Yeah, finished with that crazy hot streak to end last season after Torts got fired.
He isn't signed long-term. He's not under a big, or at least a long-term deal like Tippett or TK. And now he's had a few injuries that I am hoping are just a one-and-done sort of thing. But he's had the shoulder. Gotta believe this was a tricep or something, whatever the hell it was, elbow, that he, is winding up for a one-timer and just all of a sudden, all right, see you in training camp probably.
I think it's a shoulder. I haven't been able to get that 100% confirmed, but I'm pretty sure it's a shoulder.
My concern is his most dangerous weapon is that shot. The goal scoring, yeah, man, he's really good in battles. He's a good two-way player. But his ability to beat a goalie clean with his shot is what makes him a dangerous, potentially first-line player. If this injury impacts that at all, man, that kind of changes the math here in terms of how steadfast I want to hold on to him.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, Bill. I guess I just don't share that. Like, I have more confidence in modern medicine
Yeah.
to not kill his shot because of a shoulder injury. Like, I'm more concerned with Forrester. I'm more concerned about his ability to stay healthy than I am about like he's going to come back from this and just not be able to score goals anymore because his shot's going to be 20% less effective. Like, that's my bigger concern, is that is he getting to the point where like this shoulder injury thing might just keep recurring? I worry more about that than I worry about his shot. But look, the way I look at it with Forrester is good player to be sure, but not somebody who I would hold up a deal for the top 6 center that they so desperately need. The reason why I'm a little bit not skeptical, but just iffy on the idea that Forrester would be the guy they trade is I'm just not sure if he's a guy where the Flyers are higher on him than the rest of the NHL is. Because Forrester, I mean, I remember dating back to his time as a prospect. He was a guy where we talked about it on this show. We talked about it on BSH that like the Flyers always were higher on Forrester than the general public, than the hockey world at large. Maybe that's changed. Maybe now teams have watched him enough for like, nah, this guy's a stud. He's JV Mark Stone. I want him on my team. He brings size to the table. He's not a terrible skater anymore, and he's got a plus shot. I want him on my roster. Maybe that's the case. But I'm just not 100% convinced that like he's viewed highly enough around the league to be the centerpiece for a Robert Thomas trade, for example. Maybe he is. I'm just skeptical that like maybe he's a guy where he's still viewed higher internally with the Flyers than he is around the league.
Yeah, I thought that's the direction you were going in, because going back to those conversations, like, you would say, well, we know you don't have the top end talent in the farm system, and they go, whoa, wait up, Tyson Foerster. And listen, he fell to 23 in the draft because of the skating. A lot of the organization probably believes he should have been, if not a top 10, at least a top half of the draft guy. And he ends up falling to the Flyers in the 20s because of that. And he's improved the skating. But I do think, like, we watching him every night and the organization that helped bring him along and drafted him and developed him probably have the highest possible opinion of the player, compared to anyone else who just looks and goes, yeah, all right, he can score some goals for you. He's a good tough player.
Yeah, and I can't imagine there are teams in the league that don't like Tyson Foerster. So like, nah, dude's a bum.
Oh yeah.
But I'm just skeptical. And look, all you need is one team. All you need is that one team that sees Tyson Foerster and sees Mark Stone, and then you can work out a deal. But I'm just skeptical that the love of Foerster that we and the Flyers especially clearly have for him is universal across every team in the NHL, the way it would be with a guy who already has a season where he scored 35 goals. You know what I mean?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. All right, this next guy here, I've been debating. Yeah, we have time to get to Bobby Brink. So Brink's going to be 25 in July. He's playing over 15 minutes a night. He is a good, solid middle six winger. But by now, I feel like if there was going to be a huge step up in terms of offensive production, it would have come. That's not to say he can't be 27 and start really, so it becomes a 50, 55 point guy or something. But I feel as if he was going to take a big leap, it would have happened by now.
Yeah, I think the reason why I'm open to trading Brink, and the Brink thing is similar with Foerster, where I do worry, like, what's his value around the league? Does he going to bring back all that much? He is a 5'8" winger who isn't an elite scorer. What kind of value does he really have? But I do wonder if you're going to move Brink, like, is this the time? Because if he's never going to be more than about a 40-point guy, the primary value that he has is that he's on a cheap contract and he's under team control. If you wait a couple more years and then like at 27, you got to sign, because like cap's going up, everybody's getting paid more. And suddenly like you got to pay a 40-point winger $5 million a year. Then even if you do it, like, and you trade him later, what kind of value does he really have? Then he's getting paid market value. Like, this might be the time to cash in on him if you don't see him fitting over the long term and you don't think he has another level. Now, if you think he has another level and you want to bet on him, then go for it. I'm just not sure I see that in him.
I was debating asking you this question, but I'm sitting here looking at the Minnesota Wild's Puckpedia page, and We all know Minnesota loves Minnesota boys, Charlie. So let me run something by you here. They have Philip Gustafson signed through 2030-31 at 6.8 mil. He's got a few years of no moves in there. He's got like 15-team no trade clause the last few years of the deal. He's signed for 5 years, and it doesn't even begin until next season. They also have a young goalie, Jesper Wallstedt. Would you trade Bobby Brink and Noah Cates for Wallstedt?
Ooh, that's interesting. I like Wallstedt a lot. He's having a good year, and there was some chatter that he might be more available than most think. That's interesting. It's a lot to give up to solve a problem at a position that might solve itself with guys like Zavragin and Bjarnason, but it's not an idea that I hate offhand. Let me put it that way.
That position might solve itself. Also, like goalies, I don't know, man. And you know what the whole league needs? Goalies.
It's true.
If you have some really good prospects, now, of course, that will come back to bite you one day. We'll lose to that guy in the Stanley Cup final, probably. But, like, I don't know. I would consider it at least. I wanted to run that by you. Like, do you think that would be a fair deal? Like, I think Cates has decent as a utility forward, play him anywhere, wing, center, middle six, anywhere in the lineup. I think he would have value. And he just feels like a wild player to me, you know?
Yeah. He does. He does have that like defensively oriented.
Brink, not so much, but from there, so maybe that makes up for his lack of size.
Maybe. I would have to guess that like in that package you'd probably also have to include a draft pick. Because Wallstedt's having a good year, and he's a young goalie, and as you said, everybody around the league wants goalies, but there might be something there in terms of the starting point of the package.
Cates, Brink, and 2-2s. That's my final offer. And that brings us to the Noah Cates part of this. But like I said, I just explained that. We will get to Alex Bump and some of the other guys on the other side, but we got to take that final break. Let me tell you about a local business that's been helping Philly homeowners and businesses stay pest-free. It's Evans Pest Control. And this isn't some giant national chain. They're a family-owned, community-focused pest control company right here in the Philly area, and they've been earning the trust of our neighborhoods for years. Evans Pest Control uses a state-of-the-art equipment, safe and effective treatment options, and their techs go through continuous training, so they're equipped to handle anything. We're talking rodents, we're talking insects, termites, and even bed bugs. They offer priority services and consultations, which is huge when you have a problem with pests. Everyone in Philly knows pests don't knock, they just show up. Evans Pest Control is your solution. So if you see signs of pests or just want to prevent them before they start, reach out to Evans Pest Control. Visit evanspestmgmt.com to schedule your free consultation. That's Evans Pest Control at evanspestmgmt.com. It's time to make your home work smarter, not harder, with TrueMark. Because with a TrueMark Financial Home Equity line of credit, you can tap in your home's equity to handle renovations, upgrades, or whatever's next on your list. A TrueMark Financial HELOC Select gives you the flexibility to borrow when you need it on your timeline. You start with a revolving line of credit, use only what you need, and when you're ready, you can lock in all or part of your balance at a fixed rate for predictable payments. You only pay interest on what you use, and as you pay it back, that credit becomes available again. No reapplying, no extra steps. And with competitive rates compared to most unsecured loans and flexible repayment options, this could be a smart move for your home and your wallet. Learn more about TrueMark Financial's home equity line of credit at TrueMark.com or stop by one of their 24 branch locations to get started. TrueMark Financial is federally insured by the NCUA and is an equal opportunity lender, NMLS 404938. And remember, let's go Flyers! All right, before we wrap up today's show and get to your super chats, hit the freaking like button. Not nearly enough likes out of you people, and it's pissing me off, quite honestly. The Cates part of this conversation, like I said, he's a center now, but acquiring another non like 1C guy could push him out to the wing, and to me that makes him just a little bit more expendable. Like, he's very valuable to this team right now because we have no centers. But if they were to get another Dvorak type, not better than him maybe, but like not okay, he's at line one. That doesn't change what we're doing with Cates. But if it's a guy who's in the middle six, that could change how you view Cates. Do you get the impression, Charlie, that they look at Noah Cates and think, yeah, but he should be a winger, but he's doing this because we need him to right now, or they're invested in him as center Noah Cates?
No, I think they're invested in him as center Noah Cates. I think they are frustrated that he hasn't gotten better at faceoffs. I think that's a real frustration, especially given the fact that, you know, to use him properly, you want to use him in the defensive zone, but it really helps if you're using a defensive specialist in the defensive zone at center if he can win more faceoffs than he loses, or at least like break even. And he hasn't been able to do that. And it's not for lack of effort. You know, he's working at it. He's just yet to crack the code of being good at faceoffs. And I've talked to him, like, he gets frustrated with it. But I think that the thing with Cates that leads me to not want to dismiss the possibility of him getting moved. And it's the exact same thing that I'll say about Cam York. I know we're not talking about defensemen today, but I think it's noteworthy that neither of those guys have any trade protection. I think that is noteworthy that the Flyers made sure when they gave them, the Cates got a 4-year contract, York got a 5-year contract. None of them have trade protection. And they could have, like, York, it would have taken a couple years, but they could have given him a no trade, some no trade protection, 10 team, 20 team, whatever. Cates is 27. He could have been given no trade, at least a modified.
Yeah.
And they didn't. They maybe gave both of them a little, couple $100,000 more on the deal to make sure that they kept the flexibility that, hey, if a trade comes around, not that they're trying to trade them. If they were trying to trade them, they wouldn't assign them to 4 or 5 year deals. But the fact they don't have any trade protection, it's a little eyebrow raising in the sense of like how they view those guys. The fact that Case doesn't have no trade protection, it makes him, makes him an intriguing possibility as the secondary piece in a deal where you get a center back because the other team wants a guy to replace the guy they traded you.
All right. And then there's Alex Bump. He's not here yet. 22 in the AHL, coming along, has missed some time. I just can't imagine he has a ton of value league-wide. Like, he's a guy, I think, his value to the Flyers as a piece that they really like and found late in the draft is more than around the rest of the league, especially at this point in his development where he's got 20 points in 28 games in the AHL. He's not dominating, but he's started to heat it up. The injuries have set him back. It looks like Denver Barkey has jumped him in the depth chart. Like, I just can't imagine he's like, oh, yeah, and he's the centerpiece of the trade that we got to make. He could be a piece of it, I guess, but I just can't see him as teams banging down the door for Alex Bump.
I'm with you. And it just goes back to the fact that, hey, he was a 5th round pick. This is a guy who, teams are intrigued by. They watched him play for Western Michigan. Everybody watched the Frozen Four and watched him be a stud for that team. So it's not like they think he's chopped liver. But I do agree that there's probably an element of the Flyers are higher on this guy internally than most teams are going to be high on him externally because they drafted and developed him. They were the ones that unearthed him and found him in the 5th round. And they're the guys who, he played at Western Michigan and played at Jonesy's alma mater.
Yes.
Like there's an attachment there that makes it less likely in my eyes that they're going to find a deal where another team values him as highly as they do.
And then there's Denver Barkey, who has played 22 NHL games. He is well ahead of schedule. I want to see if we can fit in a little conversation about him in a second. I just don't see him getting traded anytime soon. And honestly, as a 3rd-round pick who got here before he turned 21, that's a hell of a find. I want that sort of value. I'm not looking to move that unless it's like, hey, man, they need one more piece in this deal. And we like, all right, sure. I'll move Denver Barkey in that situation if we are getting a stud first-line caliber player at center or defense. But it would take that.
Yeah, he's not untouchable for me, but he's a guy that I personally would not want to trade. I want to see what Denver Barkey is going to become. I watch him and I see a guy, and I've said this from the jump. I don't know what role he's going to take on a contending team, on a truly great team. I don't know where he'll slot in, whether it's, top 6er, middle 6er, bottom 6er, wing. I don't know. But I know that I want him on my team, that he's a guy where I will miss him if he's not playing in a game, and he's developing into very much that guy. I want to watch Denver Barkey's progression in person. I don't want another team to benefit from what he's going to ultimately become. So selfishly, I don't want them to move Denver Barkey.
So that's like 9 or 10 guys for 6 spots, Charlie. And that's not to say anything of like, other prospects or potential high-end talent acquisitions that happen to be wingers, guys who break out when you give them a shot, like in the Leclerc trade scenario. Like, he was good, and then he came here. It was like, oh, he's freaking awesome. Like that's that sort of deal. And then there's the other tier. Grebenkin was borderline for me. It's just like, he has played a decent amount this year, and he's got 8 points or something. And then there's Grundstrom, Hathaway, Deslauriers, none of whom I believe really have like a future here. We talked about that yesterday on the mini pod or the main show. I don't remember. Like, trade all three, see what the hell you can get. Whatever. But since we brought up Denver Barkey and you're not on the show tomorrow, I do want to try to fit this conversation in, because you wrote a really good feature on the new living quarters for Denver Barkey. He has moved in with teammate Trevor Zegras. He was living out of the, I guess, the team hotel in Voorhees. That's where they put guys up.
Yeah.
And it appears like, oh, you're staying, kid. And Trevor Zegras is like, stop living at this freaking hotel that has already like messed up your back with their ass mattresses and come live with me. What were some of the standout parts of this piece?
Yeah, well, number one, I thought the Zegras Barkey story is just fun. It's always fun when these sorts of things come about. I love the fact that Zegras stepped up and recognized this. He, Tocchet told us that Zegras went to him first and said, like, hey, what do you think about this idea? And Tocchet said he loved it. And then I talked to Zegras about it. Yeah. And Zegras basically like, look, it's pretty clear this kid ain't going anywhere. And I felt bad that he was still staying in the hotel, and I like him. I like hanging out with him. He seems like a nice kid. He seems like somebody I get along with, and sure, what the hell? I got the space. I love that. I love, number one, that Barkey's getting accepted into the crew. Yeah. But number two, that Zegras, who, young guy, like, he's not old, is stepping up into a little bit more of a, I'm not going to say leadership role, but definitely a little bit more of maybe that like veteran mentor role to a kid who, by all accounts, looks like he's going to be here for a while.
Yeah, and I very much appreciate, we talked about this a little yesterday, the guys stepping up into roles, and this is yet another, like, his maturity coming around. Like, one of the things you could say about Trevor Zegras that potentially held him back was, yeah, he's an immature kid. We got to get him playing the right way. We got to get him focused on hockey. It feels like, whether that was true or not, it's definitely not a concern anymore. And I really liked, I like your observation that he's not, he's not Danny Briere having Sean Couturier move in with him when Danny's kids were closer in age to Coots' age than he was. Like, I think it was like a year or two, like, in a difference there. But I really like this quote you got from Tocchet. That's, if you just look at the history of hockey, I know Wayne Gretzky brought Jamie Storr in, Mario Lemieux brought Sid in. I could name a million guys. Schaefer's living at Matt Martin's house. That stuff's amazing. And for Trevor, it's a big step. And I do think there is something to this sort of teammate guy time, this bonding time. And there's something to a younger guy stepping up into this role. I think that's really promising about Trevor Zegras when we say, well, he might be the easiest one to trade of the group. Yeah, he also might be like I don't want to say heart and soul, because that's like a Nick Seeler type guy, but he might be the straw that stirs the drink in terms of skill and personality for this group, more so than we even thought. I want to finish this.
One comparison I want to make, because I actually think there are some comparables in terms of their personalities too. Zegras is maybe a little bit more, not fun-loving, but and not immature, but maybe like childish. Like, he just kind of has that childlike sense of wonder. But in a lot of ways, Zegras has kind of stepped into the role that Joel Farabee played, socially, in terms of like, kind of just being the fun guy that everybody likes in that role.
All right, we got to hit overtime. Go to allphly.com to keep watching. That's pretty much all I had on that. We talked about like Drysdale, the on-ice maturity of Tippett. You mentioned Cam York yesterday. It does feel like some of these guys who are now like young vets are coming into their own as, all right, you're not a kid in this league anymore. You got to be one of the leaders. It does feel like that is beginning to happen a little bit.
Yeah, it does. And, I know a lot of fans don't like to hear it because it annoys them. Like, well, I don't care about the room. I just care about the team and the fact that they seem like they're going nowhere. But it is a good room. Like, these guys do like each other. They're tight. They go to bat for each other. And Zegras has fit in really nicely. And it's cool because, I made the comparison to Joel Farabee. The problem with Joel Farabee wasn't that he wasn't a good dude. It was that he wasn't playing well. So you're like, okay, well, we can't just keep a guy around because he's a good dude in the room if he's not developing and he's on a contract that's looking scarier and scarier as every year passes. If Zegras can bring that, but also be a point per game guy, which it didn't look like Farabee was ever going to become, I'm all for that. I think that's great for the Flyers.
I realize their situations are different, but I did want to bring this up to wrap up this part of the convo. We talk about Denver Barkey as if he is so young and so far ahead of schedule. And listen, he was a third-round pick. He is a rookie. It's his first-year pro. He's 5 months younger than Matvei Michkov. Do you think Mish could use some guy time like this? Like, I know, again, his situation different. But like, we talk about that social circle, and maybe he's not one of the dudes who, he's the crew going out every time the crew goes out.
Yeah.
Do you think he could use something like this?
I mean, yes, I think it would be awesome. That said, and I want to make it clear, like, I've been doing a significant amount of digging into this over the last few weeks, especially because I don't want to miss the boat on a story. Like, if it turns out that secretly everybody on the team hates Matvei Michkov, like, I don't want to be late to that. So I've been doing digging. I'm like, where is he at in the room? Do people like him? Is there resentment there? Do people think he gets special treatment? Things like that. So I've been, and like, everything I've heard is that for the most part, he's fine in the room. That like the worst thing you really hear is guys being like, yeah, he needs to grow up a little bit, but seems like a decent enough kid. Like nothing bad, nothing like, oh my God, I hate this kid, you need to get rid of him. But I will say that the one thing that I think hurts him in this regard is the language barrier. It hurts. And that's and I do think there is organizationally, both from the player standpoint and from the organization standpoint, it's not that they're like mad at him, but they do wish that he was picking up English quicker because it would just make everything easier. And I think that's making it tougher for him to really connect with the guys in the way that Barkey can just naturally because like he's a North American kid.
And listen, he speaks better English than anyone in that room outside of probably Grebenkin and Abel speak Russian, like it's not as if he's not picking it up. We've heard that. I do feel like, though, like living with an English-speaking roommate might help bring that along. But again, everyone's situation is different. I'm not trying to be like xenophobic here, but you'd have better chemistry if you all understood each other. Like,
yeah,
I think that's
and I think he's going to get there. I think he's going to.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, the hope, we don't know this for sure, but the hope is that he's going to stay, basically the entire summer over here in Voorhees. And if he spends the entire summer, that will probably help the English because he's having to interact in English a lot of the time with, not even just with the training staff, but just like, hey, if he goes to Chipotle,
everybody
probably has to say a couple words in English,
No, that was one of the first things Rick Tocchet said, like when the team reconvened for camp was, yeah, he's a little rusty because he hadn't done it all summer. Like, he's just a little rusty with the English because he's probably been talking to his buddies in Russian, which makes sense. It's his native language. All right, let's get to your super chats. There's a few of them to hit here today. I got to blow up my screen so I can read them. There we go. Just from JH, he says, Blurg. All right. Blurg to you as well.
Thanks, JH.
Next one here is also JH. The shooter was within 200 feet of the goalie. Interference. Man, like, I wish you had to interfere with a goalie for it to be goalie interference. Like, was he allowed to play his position? I don't know. They didn't handcuff him. Like,
yeah, true.
Unless he was, like, actually stopped, like, from playing his position. But like, we can yell about this all day. It's not going to change anything.
Yeah, and I know, a lot of the people watching the show are probably also dual screening with the U.S. game, but it appears the U.S. if you're not doing that, the U.S. is now up 5-1, so they're kind of running away with this thing
all
now.
Right, so they figured it out.
They figured it out.
Man, if only Rodrigo Abels was healthy, Charlie.
If only.
Next one here is from Local Drug 69. What's up, pal? Yes or no only, your reputation as hockey analysts on the line, not reporters. Will Briere Tocchet turn this team into a cup contender after 5 more years?
Okay, well, I mean, local drunk, I guess what I'll say is like, I choose to live in a world where it's not all negative all the time. And I just really want the Flyers to be in contention within 5 years. I don't want to be covering a team that's stuck in the mud for the next half decade. Like, I'll be in my 40s by then. So I'm going to say, yes, they are a cup contender within 5 years because I just don't want to envision a world where they're not.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah.
Buffalo's figuring it out.
Yeah.
We probably can. All right. Next one here. J.E. Frucione. Guys, 2 questions. Who has higher value in a trade right now, Foerster or Tippett? And I think no way Dallas keeps Robertson. He's not a C, but he's very good at hockey. What package do you think would be enough to land him? I mean, like, they make it clear in terms of the second part of this question. They're not, like, in love with Jason Robertson. He's good. He's a nice player to have. Scores a ton of goals. They don't love him. If they did, they'd sign him like they sign everybody else.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, you'd have to move some wingers and probably some pretty decent other assets as well. I'd be willing to do it if it's like, hey man, it's Owen Tippett and some picks and like a Noah Cates or something like that. Sure.
Yeah, there's obviously a price where I would trade for Jason Robertson. He's an awesome player, and the Flyers need more awesome players. It's just that the Flyers have stockpiled a lot of assets. I think of more assets than people give them credit for, but you only have so many of them, and I'd be hesitant to like unload a bunch of them to just get another winger.
Yeah, he's really good.
For the right price, absolutely. I want the Flyers to get better players.
He's really good, but he's more of a nice to have than a need to have at this point, whereas they have stuff they need. All right, do we have... in the first part of the question, who has more value, Foerster or Tippett? It's got to be Tippett. He's healthy, and he's good. Like... hurt guy or healthy guy. I don't know. The guy with 19 goals who rarely misses time versus Foerster who hasn't played since December 1st.
Yeah, like, right now, Tippett probably. I don't know that. I think, honestly, the answer to this question is probably it depends on the team. I bet there are some teams that like Tippett more than Foerster. There are some teams that like Foerster more than Tippett, and it just sort of depends on which team you're happy to be negotiating with.
After World Championships and then coming out of, Sidney Crosby talking him up, and then the first part of the season where he scores a ton of goals, I could absolutely see Foerster being ahead. But at this point, it's like, I don't know. He's hurt his arm again, so we'll see. All right, next one here is JH. Latvia getting spanked 4-1. Charlie said it's now 5-1. So, mighty Latvia. They gotta get their feet wet. We'll stick with them.
As you said, if only they had Rodrigo Abels.
Rodrigo Abels would be the difference.
Game changer.
They played a hell of a first period.
They did. Good for them.
Although they did give up 2 goals that didn't count. All right. Is that we have another one from Diedelnick. Is it crazy to think this season wasn't supposed to be a total success? This slump is brutal, but it feels like a team in transition coming off of over a decade of meh. Even 2019 lacked identity.
Yeah.
I would say this was let's see where we're at. We've put this group together now. We are done with the subtracting for subtracting's sake. Go show us what you are so we can figure out what the adds need to be. Like, we know the positions, but we don't know exactly how we're going to get them or what sort of players we need to target. Go show us. So I do think this was I called it an evaluation year the other day, and you're like, well, it's not that. I would say it is, like Diedelnick says here, a transition year.
Yeah, I think I have two answers to that. Number one is a lot of it, in my mind, does depend on the way the season ends. You know, if they come back from the break and are still losing to the rate that they were losing in January, then they finish with a top 5 pick, like, you might say that's good for the rebuild because they are picking high, and maybe that's what you want anyway. But like, that would, in my mind, make the season a failure because it's a failure based on what they wanted to do, which leads into my second point. I think we need to make a distinction between what fans would view the season as what fans would view as a successful season and what the organization views as a successful season, because the organization straight up told us going into this season what they viewed as a successful season, which was, you don't need to make the playoffs, but you need to show signs of progress. You need to show signs of growth. We need to be better. We need to be more competitive. If the Flyers come out after the Olympic break and they go back to being about a 500 team and they finish, 6, 7, 8 points out of a playoff spot, but they improved 13, 14, 15 points from last year, the organization will view that as a success because they told us that's what they view it as. That's what they would view as a success. Now, fans might not think that is a success because some fans want the team to make the playoffs. Some fans want the team to tank. So those groups of fans will not view that season as a success, but the organization very well might based on the parameters they laid out in September.
All right. Do we have any more? No, that is it. So that is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers. Thank you all for listening. Thanks for hanging out. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Follow us right here on the PHLY Sports YouTube page. We'll be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. with another show. Probably going to be a mailbag. So hit me up with the questions. I haven't put the tweet out yet, but just send them over to PHLY Flyers on Twitter.
Yeah. And I'm gonna be on vacation Friday, Monday, and Tuesday, so I'll be off for 3 shows.
And that's why we're doing a mailbag, baby, because Charlie hates the mailbags. Follow the podcast wherever you get those. I am Bill. That is Charlie. Thanks as always to Brenna. Be excellent to each other.
We all silly like the mayor.